In this video, we are going to learn about data types. Properly defining the fields in a table. Fields is also known as columns. Okay, so in easy language, we can say columns. In a table is important to the overall optimization of your database. You should use only the type and size of field you really need to use. Now, this is important, okay? You should use the only the type and size of field you really need to use. For example, do not define a field 10 character wide if you know you are only going to use 2 characters. These type of fields or columns are also referred to as data types after the type of data you will be storing in those fields. Now I will explain you with a very interesting example. Let's say if I have a column called age in one of my tables. Okay, age. Now I know that age cannot exceed three numbers, like the maximum age could be 200, or maybe if I take the best case then it would go 250, but not more than that, right? The age cannot be in 4 digits or 5 digits. It will be maximum in 3 digits and minimum in 1 digit. Okay. Now if I take integer, if I keep the type of this field as integer, it would be a wrong option. Why? Because integer can take up to 11 spaces, 11 digits it can store. But here in this case, my maximum digits are 3. So rest 8 of them will be wasted. So I don't want that. So in such a case, we have to pick up the proper data type for a particular field. So in this case, I would go for tiny int. Now tiny int is a data type, okay, in MySQL, which can store data maybe up to 4 digits. Okay, so I can use tiny int instead of int. I have seen many people who don't take this thing seriously. They say it's okay if the bits are getting wasted. No, if you want to make your software optimized, then you have to make sure these small mistakes don't appear in your project. Okay, so this is what it says. Do not define a field 10 characters wide if you know you are only going to use 2 characters. So you have to properly select a data type for your field. Okay. Now MySQL uses many different data types. Now actually there are many data types, but they can be broken into three main categories. These are the three main categories, and under these categories there are lots of data types. The first one is numeric. Numeric means numbers, like we have integers, we have floating point numbers. Okay, floating point numbers means decimal numbers. Then the second category is date and time. If you want to store date, time, maybe year, and may all the related or maybe related to that, you can make use of this category. And then we have string types. String types means we have varchar, char, then blob. Okay, so we will be looking at some of the data types under these categories, but believe me, there are many more data types that are available, but it is not possible for me to cover each and every data type in this video. Okay, so let's go. So first, let's study numeric data type. MySQL uses all the standard SQL numeric data types. So as I said, SQL is the format. It gives out the structure, means how a database management system should be designed, what all should be the data types, how the queries should be designed. Means it just lays out a it just lays out a format for DBMS developers, so that they can follow that format and make data and design DBMS accordingly. So if you are coming to MySQL from a different database, these definitions will look familiar. So if you are switching from Oracle to MySQL, or maybe from MySQL to Oracle, things don't change much because they both follow the standard SQL format. The following list shows the common numeric data types and their description. Okay, So under this category, there are actually many data types, but I have just shown 2 to 3 of them. First is int, most commonly used. A normal sized integer can be signed or unsigned. If signed, the signed unsigned means positive or negative. If signed, the allowable range is from this. You can store from this range to this range. It is huge, right? Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 digits. Okay, so it's actually huge. If unsigned, the allowable range is from 0 to this. Okay, so unsigned means if it is a positive integer, then the size is from 0 to this. You can specify a width up to 11 digits. Means basically 11 digits can be stored if you use int as a data type. Then we have float. Float means the decimal. A floating point number that cannot be unsigned. You can define the display length, okay, what should be the length, and the number of decimals. This is not required and will default to 10 and 2, where 2 is the number of decimals and 10 is the total number of digits. So if you don't specify the length, it's okay. The default is 10 numbers, and after decimals, it will be 2 digits. Okay, so 10.2. So 10 digits before decimal and 2 digits after decimal. Decimal precision can go to 24 places for a float. Okay. Now we have double. Okay. A double precision floating point number that cannot be unsigned. You can define the display length and the number of decimals. This is not required and will default to. Okay, so this contains a bit more than float. It can contain 14 digits before decimal and 4 digits after decimal, where 4 is the number of decimals. Decimal precision can go to 53 places for a double. Okay. Now we have big int. Okay, we saw int and now we have big int, but actually even we have small int, we have medium int, we have tiny int. So there are a lot more variations that you can explore later, but I'm just giving you an overview, okay, how to use them. A large integer that can be signed or unsigned. Now, in case of integer, we saw it can hold up to maximum 11 digits, but in this case, the width can go up to 20 digits. Okay, so there are certain situations where you have to use big int, sometimes tiny int. So accordingly, you have to make a decision, means what type to use and where it should be. Now let's come to date and time. Okay, date and time. The MySQL date and time data types are as follows. First is date. A date is in this format. Okay, it will be stored in this format. First year, then month, then date. Between this, the range is from this to this. Okay, it cannot go beyond that. Okay. Now, for example, December 30, 1973 would be stored as 1973. December means the month is 12 and date is 30. So, in this format, first the year, second month, and third date. So, you can make use of the type date if you want to store the date. Then, date time. A date and time combination is this. It would look something like this. Time will be stored as hours, minutes, and seconds. Between this, okay, and this means the range is this basically. Yeah, it can have 24 hours. So from 000 to 23:59:59. For example, 3:30 in the afternoon on December 30, 1973 would be stored as 1973:12:30. This is the date, and 15:30 since it is afternoon, so that's why we don't write 3:30. So that is why we don't write 3:30, instead we write 15:30. Then we have time. If you only want to store time, it will store that in this format. First the hours, then the minutes, and then the seconds. and then year. Okay, stores a year in a 2-digit or a 4-digit format. If the length is specified as 2, year can be between 1970 to 2069. If the length is specified as 4, the year can be 1901 to 2155. Okay, and the default length is 4. So if you don't specify any length, the default will be 4. Okay, so you should keep these all things in mind, okay, because while using you should know what is the default value and what if I use 2 or 4. Okay, so you should keep all these things in mind. And there are okay, so now let's move to strings. Now strings, usually strings and numeric are most majority, they are used majority of the time. Okay, but even date and time are used. So I'm not bifurcating among any data types. Although the numeric and data types are fun, most data type you will store will be in a string format. As I said, this is widely used. This list describes the common string data types in MySQL. First is character, a fixed length string between 1 and 255 characters in length. Write padded with spaces to the specified length when stored. Defining a length is not required, but the default is 1. The default length is 1. Okay. Then we have varchar. Varchar we have already used. Okay. A variable length string between 1 and 255 characters in length. For example, varchar 25. You must define a length when creating a varchar. So it is necessary to define a length. Okay, now here I have specified 25, means maximum 25 characters can be stored. Okay, so actually there are some more like blob which is used to store images in our database, and there are some more data types that you can explore, but I have picked some of the some of the data types that are widely used. Okay, so I will just show you, I will just go to our my admin. Okay, and here I will just show you how we write data. You all already know. Let's say if I'm creating a table, so I'll just say create table, and let's give it as test. So here we specified the column name. So let's keep first as username, and then first we write the name and then the type. So like this, and then we specify the length. Okay, then we separate them by a comma, and let's say age int. Okay, so like this. So first the name of the column and then its type. Okay, so this is how it is. So these are data types: varchar, int, then we can date maybe, okay, and all these. So this is about the data types in MySQL, and thank you.